Should I start again? Okay, so officially, for those who aren't in the gallery, I have called the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. and I have read the territorial acknowledgement. And I'm going to carry on by advising that we're flying the Rainbow Pride flag outside the Municipal Center this week in recognition of June as Pride Month. We do continue to express our solidarity with the Ukrainian people as part of that solidarity, and as a welcoming and inclusive community, I highlight our unwavering support for the Ukraine, the Ukrainian people, and for democratically elected sovereign governments around the world. Brighton, our council, and our citizens are deeply concerned about the humanitarian toll the invasion will take on the Ukraine and its citizens. And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that Council approve the June 13th, 2022 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of Council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. As previous, I declared on 5.5 and that the bylaw and 8.2. And I've already reported that through to the clerk.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Any other declarations? Thank you. We have no delegations this evening, which brings us to our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Tadman. The council move into the statutory public meeting June 13th, 2022 at 6:33 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The Municipality of Brighton takes steps beyond the requirement of the Planning Act to engage the community in land use planning initiatives. The municipality also holds a statutory public meeting on the planning application and then receive a staff report with a recommendation on which council will make a decision. After council has made our decision, any person or public body may appeal council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as long as they have made an oral submission at this meeting or provided comments in writing to the clerk's office and requested notice of the decision from the clerk's office. This is also true of any person or public body that wishes to participate in the appeal. For details or information on appealing decisions of council, please visit the municipal website or contact the clerk's office. And the first item in our statutory public meeting this evening is from applicant Gary Ware, a consent and rezoning for vacant lot 116 Bayview Lane, 106 Bayview Lane, 104 Bayview Lane, and 102 Bayview Lane. So Mrs. Deck, by what method and on what date was notice of the consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications given?
Notice of the consent and zoning bylaw amendment application was sent by first-class mail on May 19th, 2022 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to all the agencies as required under the Planning Act. In addition, a sign notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment?
The purpose of consent applications, file numbers B24, 2021, B25, 2021, B26, 2021, and B27, 2021, is to create a proposed right-of-way and add portions of a vacant parcel to multiple existing shoreline residential properties on Bayview Lane. These applications will establish access for all benefiting parcels onto Stony Point Road, as the subject lands are currently being accessed from Bayview Lane. The lot additions and proposed right-of-way will result in the benefiting parcels in achieving increased lot areas, which will provide opportunities for dwellings to be expanded, secondary units to be proposed, and improve locations and clearances of upgraded wells or septic systems. The proposed new access points created through the lot addition applications will result in access outside of the flooding hazard. Moving access to these properties outside of the flood hazard would result in a decrease in risk to public safety and appears to bring the subject properties towards compliance with LTC policies. The purpose of the 4 consent applications is to create the proposed right-of-way fronting onto Stony Point Road and to facilitate 3 lot additions to existing shoreline residential properties. No new lots are being created. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application, Z06-2022, is to rezone the vacant parcels to be added to the benefiting lands at 116 Bayview Lane, 106 Bayview Lane, and 102 Bayview Lane to the shoreline residential exception number 1 zone to ensure consistent zoning across the property and to continue to protect the key hydrological features surrounding the property.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment? Madam Clerk, are you aware of anyone on Zoom who will be joining us for that purpose?
There is no one.
Thank you. Do members of council have any questions or comments regarding the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment? Councillor LeBlanc.
Just through you, Mayor, to the planner. Lot number 104, it says benefiting property. But I do not see which one it's attached to. I see the one for 116, 106, and 102, that they're getting additional properties and they're benefiting. But where does 104 benefit from?
Mrs. Deck.
104 is actually benefiting from the proposed right-of-way. 104 is not getting any new lands added to it as part of a lot addition. They are only subject to the proposed right-of-way application.
Go ahead.
Fully knowing that we've had problems with right-of-ways on Stony Point Road. Some of them have severed off. So is there 2 right-of-ways? Because I see what, no, all right. So you're keeping one piece of property attached to Stony Point Road. Is that what it is? And you're using a right-of-way on the bottom end for number 36C on your drawing? Proposed lot addition to be added to 102.
Mrs. Deck, are you able to answer that question?
I'm not sure I fully understand. There is an existing right-of-way along Bayview Lane that's currently those homes are being accessed through. The proposed right-of-way is going to allow 104 and 102 to be accessed onto Stony Point Road.
So the right-of-way runs parallel to the shoreline, essentially, and currently does not attach to 102. Is that correct?
I believe it currently does, but they're looking for frontage onto Stony Point Road, which is a public fronting road. So that's the difference here is that
Okay.
currently they're on Bayview Lane, but they're adding frontage onto Stony Point Road.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything further? Go ahead.
One more question. Since we've approved in the municipality of Brighton, secondary dwellings, are these lots on the opposite side that are benefiting? Will they be able to have secondary dwellings built on those properties?
Mrs. Deck.
Through the lot addition applications, these lots will certainly become a lot larger. So yes, there would be potential to be secondary dwellings, but they would still have to conform to our policies, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Deck, do you have any final comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision at this time on the consent and zoning bylaw amendment? Okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect. The council receives this staff report dated June 13th, 2022 regarding consent applications B24, 2021, B25, 2021, B26, 2021, B27, 2021, and zoning bylaw amendment application Z17, 2021, as prepared by the Planning and Development Department. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to rezone the portions of land to be added to the benefiting lands at 116 Bayview Lane, 106 Bayview Lane, 102 Bayview Lane from rural residential exception number 1 zone to shoreline residential exception number 1 zone. And further, that council grant provisional consent to applications B24, 2021, B25, 2021, B26, 2021, and B27, 2021, subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 2 years from the date of the mailing of the decision. That application for zoning bylaw amendment Z06-2021 is finally approved. At the applicant's cost, sufficient land be conveyed by the registered transfer to the Municipality of Brighton along the frontage of Stony Point Road for widening of the road allowance to a minimum of 10 meters from the respective center lines, inclusive of any associated traveled areas, shoulders, or drainage works. The conveyance referenced in condition number 3C above shall be clear of any liens or encumbrances, all to the satisfaction of the manager of operations. A preliminary lot grading and drainage plan be submitted to the municipality to the satisfaction of the manager of capital works, inclusive of any drainage easements as may be conveyed to the municipality on order to establish a suitable outlet. Confirmation from the applicant's solicitor that the severed and benefiting lands will merge on title. The solicitor for the applicant shall submit an undertaking to the municipality to the following effect. Quote, I hereby personally undertake to prepare and register an application to consolidate parcels for those lands being the severed lands herein and those lands being the benefiting lands herein, to provide to the municipality the registered application to consolidate parcels as soon as possible after registration of the severance, transfer, and designation of the new PIN to the severed lands. That subsections 3 and 5 of Section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance of or transaction involving the conveyed lands. All taxes on each of the lots be paid up to date prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. A digital copy of a registrable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. The OLS indicate in writing to the Department of Planning and Development that no encroachments of wells or septics will result from the lot addition conveyances. The surveyor deposit with the municipality a geospatial data file of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained lands submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. The owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed conveying the severed lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. And consent file number B24-2021 shall be completed and the transfer endorsed with the municipal official concurrently with that of consent file number B25-2021, B26-2021, and B27-2021. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to our next item in the statutory public meeting, a consent rezoning application. Files B07-2022, Z06-2022, Mark Gauthier, location is 207 Ontario Street, and Mrs. Deck, by what method and on what date was notice of the consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications given?
Notice of the consent and zoning bylaw amendment application was sent by first-class mail on May 19th, 2022 to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to all the agencies as required under the Planning Act. In addition, a signed notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed consent zoning bylaw amendment?
The purpose of consent application file number B07-2022 is to sever the property to create a new residential lot for a single detached dwelling. The proposed severed lands will have a lot area of approximately 809 square meters with a frontage of 14 meters on Ontario Street. The purpose of zoning bylaw amendment application file number Z06-2022 serves to rezone the severed lot of B07-2022 from urban residential 1 zone to urban residential 1 exception number 36 zone in order to permit the reduced lot frontage. The retained lands from consent application B07-2022 will continue to meet or exceed the standards of the urban residential 1 zone. Planning staff received 2 letters of opposition after the staff report was submitted from neighboring property owners of the subject site. A copy of the correspondences received has been emailed to council. Issues identified in the comments outline concerns such as vehicular access, fencing, municipal servicing, flooding, conformity of the official plan, and suitability of the land for the dwelling. Planning staff have reviewed the concerns and note that the conditions of consent will satisfy many of the concerns through the entrance permit process, looking at safe vehicular access and egress, the municipal consent permit for municipal servicing. The grading and drainage plan will also look at surface water flows. Fencing is a private civil matter and can be discussed between the applicant and neighboring property owners. Planning staff have reviewed the consent application and Planning staff have reviewed the consent and zoning bylaw amendment application in accordance with the applicable planning legislation and policies, and planning staff can confirm that the application is consistent with the policies of the PPS and conform with the growth plan, Northumberland County official plan, and Municipality of Brighton official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment? Anyone joining us on Zoom, Deputy Clerk? Oh, Mr. Whitehead, it looks like. Go ahead, Mr. Whitehead.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Brian Whitehead. I'm a principal and a senior planner with JP2G Consultants. And just by way of introduction, the 2G means Greer Galloway. We're affiliated with Greer Galloway, which leads me to doing some work in your municipality. I've had a chance to review the concerns that have been raised, but before I get into that, I just want to indicate that in the process of submitting this application, we pre-consulted with the municipality's development review team, they made recommendations on the submission, and which included a topographic plan, a site plan, a lot grading and drainage plan prepared by Greer Galloway. And that plan was prepared in consultation with municipal staff, and as well as a planning justification report. The application was deemed complete and reviewed by municipal staff, and there's a favorable municipal staff report in front of council tonight. The main issues that I've identified from the objections include traffic, sewage and water, flooding, which is more related to sump pumps, official plan conformity, and lot suitability. Just briefly, in terms of traffic, the proposed lot fronts on Ontario Street, which is identified as an arterial road in your plan. Doesn't mean that lot development cannot occur, but what it does mean that in reviewing applications for development on arterial roads, council gives consideration to the appropriate setbacks and buffering and servicing and landscaping in order to reduce any negative impact on the roads. And in this case, the lot grading and drainage plan indicates that there's no visual obstructions or adverse entrance requirements. This was noted by your planner. There's going to be a permit process, it's one additional lot, so we're not anticipating any adverse impacts as a result of traffic. It's a reduced speed limit along there as well. The development will be on sewer and water, and also I understand that there will be there is a existing stormwater system on Ontario Street, and as well as the flooding concern is more related to sump pumps. It's understood that there may be a need for sump pumps in the area. In this case, there's an opportunity for the sump pumps to connect to your storm system. There's concerns about land use compatibility, size of the dwelling and compared to the surrounding land use. In this case, there's an exception for road frontage from 16.7 meters to 14 meters. We've done a survey of lots in the vicinity. There are some lots that are in the neighborhood of 15.5 meters, which is closer to 14. But I think the more important planning aspect of this site suitability is that the lot does comply with all other provisions of the municipality zoning bylaw in regard to front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks, lot coverage, and dwelling unit size. There can be almost an 1,800 square foot building on this property, it's not quite as big as the dwellings in the neighboring subdivision, which are up to 3,000 square feet. But it certainly would provide an adequate accommodation and perhaps more affordable. Retained land is quite large, and all things considered, we think that there's a strong case to support this application, and I appreciate council's favorable consideration. I'm available to respond to any questions that may come up following the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment or has questions on these applications? Members of council, any questions or comments? Mrs. Deck, oh, sorry, Councillor Bateman.
Either for the director or Samantha, you said the frontage is reduced. Is that adequate frontage for this type? Have we done that before in this area? And second part of that question is, with this one on Ontario Street, there's a concern with the traffic. Have we looked at the potential or the future developments that we know are coming down the pipe, possibly in and around that same area?
Mrs. Deck?
In terms of frontage, the R1 zone is a minimum frontage of 16.7 meters. So the exception zone is to permit the 14 meters. As Mr. Whitehead alluded to, there are other developments or are other lots in the area that do have a reduced frontage from that 16.7 meters. I can't pop off an address on the top of my head. However, I do know that there are others in the neighborhood. In terms of the traffic on Ontario Street, there are other driveways in proximity to the Ontario and Raglan Street intersection from the location of this proposed dwelling. I know there has been a lot of traffic concerns about Ontario Street in relation to the proposed development that we're seeing in neighboring subdivisions. And I know it is something that I believe the Public Works Department is reviewing in terms of traffic specifically along Ontario Street. As Mr. Whitehead alluded to, this is only one detached dwelling, and we do believe in terms of our review of the applicable planning policies that is a favorable lot in terms of infill and intensification within our settlement area.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. And it's my recollection that Public Works will be undertaking a traffic study for the entire length of Ontario Street at council's direction. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Bateman.
Just a follow-up. So this is before council because it's a rezoning plus the
Severance.
frontage difference? Because typically the lack in frontage would go before the minor variance, would it not?
If it were an existing lot, yes, but this is a severance application, which is the consent portion, and the zoning bylaw amendment is to deal with the exception to the existing zone for the frontage issue. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Tadman.
As far as I can see through all of this, all the conditions are met and the concerns have been addressed. Is that, am I understanding correctly there?
We haven't read the conditions yet.
Well,
We'll pass.
No, but I have.
Yeah. So the expectation is that all the conditions will be met, or it won't happen.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
If we go down this road.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anything further from members of council? Does council wish to make a decision on these applications? Councillor Anderson?
I just wonder if we've got a letter today, just on my email today. I wonder if Lisa Francis is here, or
She is,
she is. Oh, good.
or
I just want to make sure that they're
she
satisfied.
sent someone to pretend she's here. I don't know.
I didn't recognize you.
It's the mask. It's the mask.
And I just wanted to make sure that your letter was very good and good points. I know they gave good explanation for those points. Are you satisfied with what you've heard here tonight?
Sorry, Mrs. Francis, if you could please approach, because the meetings are recorded. Thank you for your comments. Does that satisfy your question, Councillor Anderson? Your microphone, sir.
Yes, it does. Thank you. You make, still there's some good points there, but I don't want to delay this because of it, but I just wanted you to have a say and explain it. It may even improve once it's developed and once it's, and I don't know what type, if it's going to be a duplex. I don't think we're talking about that tonight. We're just talking about the severance right now, right? So we don't know. I think there may be an opportunity if something's not done the way it's supposed to be.
Well, let me ask this question, Mrs. Deck. Does the rezoning, if it were to be rezoned as recommended, would that permit a duplex on that property?
Yes, it would. The planning justification report that was submitted outlined it is a single detached dwelling. They haven't outlined that it will be a duplex. They've outlined it will be a single detached dwelling. And Mr. Whitehead might be able to elaborate on that more, but that's what the planning justification report outlined.
Yes, thank
Mr.
you.
Whitehead?
Thank you. I couldn't hear Mrs. Francis, unfortunately. The mic wasn't on, but I understand the question is, does the zoning permit a duplex dwelling? The application we filed, it does indeed say a single detached dwelling. Secondary dwelling units are considered to be good planning. And I would think that if it's the same for other single detached dwellings in your municipality, that Mr. Gauthier would be wanting to be treated the same way.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. So just regardless of what the application might say, the zoning that we are considering this evening would permit a duplex to be built. And that would not come back to council. That would just go straight to the building department. FYI.
Something will be built there anyhow. I think you just have to work with it the best you can.
Thank you for that. Councillor Bateman.
The same would apply after tonight. It could come back and it could be a second dwelling with no having to be a duplex.
Correct. Yeah. Anything further from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc?
Through the chair. Mr. White, is it Whitehead?
It is Whitehead. Could you draw your microphone closer to you, please?
Is it Mr. Whitehead? Yes. When you consider the distance of 1.2 meters between the dwellings and the property line, did you look at our accessibility bylaw where the distance between the dwelling and a property line has to be a minimum of 1.8?
Mr. Whitehead?
No, Mr. LeBlanc, I did not.
You have a follow-up, Councillor? Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Mrs. Deck, any final comments?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision on the applications? I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council receives the staff report regarding consent B07-2022 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z06-2022 as prepared by the Planning and Development Department. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to rezone certain lands located in part of Lot 2, Concession 1, being Part 2 on registered plan 38R 4662 from Urban Residential 1 zone to Urban Residential 1 exception number 36 zone. And further, that council grant provisional consent to application B07-2022, subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 2 years from the date of the mailing of the decision. That application for zoning bylaw amendment Z06-2022 is finally approved. That the applicant shall lay out and dedicate by deed to the required road authority to the satisfaction of the manager of operations a strip of land ensuring the desired right-of-way width between 26 meters to 36 meters along Ontario Street along the frontage of both the new parcel and the retained portions for road widening purposes. That cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $500 be paid to the Municipality of Brighton. That applications for an entrance permit for the severed lot is submitted and approved by the Municipality of Brighton. That an application for a municipal consent permit for the water and sanitary connections be submitted and approved by the Municipality of Brighton. A preliminary grading and drainage plan is submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That all taxes on each of the lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. That a digital copy of a registerable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. That geospatial data of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained lands shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That the owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed conveying the severed lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. Is there any discussion from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
If I could get some clarification on Councillor LeBlanc's question regarding the minimum distance for accessibility, is that a requirement? Are we allowed to go less than what Councillor LeBlanc was talking about?
Mrs. Deck?
I might have to refer this one to the director, just because I don't know if that is outlined in our zoning bylaw. Because in the R1 zone, the minimum side yard setback is 1.2 meters. So the director might need to elaborate on that one for me.
Thank you, Director Walsh.
Through the mayor to council, it's not a requirement to achieve that accessibility standard for the interior side yard. The desire is there in instances where we want to encourage an additional dwelling unit or otherwise known as a second dwelling unit in our single detached homes in the R1 zone. But that accessibility can also be made through the front yard, through the front entrance. It's not a necessity that occur at the side or the rear. So it is desirable, but it's not mandatory anywhere.
Thank you. Any further questions from members of council? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Brings us to consent application file number B19 2021 from Foten Consultants on behalf of the Canadian National Railway Company. And Mrs. Deck, by what method and on what date was notice of the consent application given?
Notice of the consent application was sent by first class mail on May 19th, 2022 to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to all the agencies as required under the Planning Act. In addition, a sign notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed consent application?
The purpose of consent application file number B19-2021 is to add approximately 1.3 hectares, 3.21 acres of land currently within the CN Railway right-of-way to the subject property, otherwise known as Applewood Meadows Phase 3 and 4 lands. The lands subject to the lot addition are not utilized or required by CN and was historically farmed by the previous owners of the benefiting lands. CN has authorized the sale of this parcel. The proposed lands of the lot addition will facilitate the proposed location of the stormwater management block for the extension of the Applewood Meadows subdivision. The benefiting lands of the consent application are currently subject to an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and plan of subdivision under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mrs. Deck. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed consent application? Ms. Wood?
Thank you. Good evening, and through you. Nothing further to add, just confirming that we have reviewed and agree with the staff recommendation and are in agreement with the conditions recommended. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments from members of the public? No one else on Zoom, correct? Deputy Clerk, thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Tadman.
My concern is that we had a derailment in that area, and I just don't see us in any way having that kind of property so close to a subdivision. And I understand it's to help them build more homes, and I can't agree with this.
I think it's specific for the stormwater management block. I don't think any development will go there except the
No, but if
stormwater.
they have the extra land and build more houses,
Right.
they wouldn't, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. A little bit on the same line as Councillor Tadman. When I'm looking at this diagram and I look at where the Royal Gala and Tolman streets come, we've kind of got a line across there. Is that, if that line was to go directly across this piece of property that we're looking at tonight, is that the end of the building envelope then? And that we're just going from there just for a stormwater pond, or will the developer be able to move houses farther south? Because I have kind of the same concerns. How much of a buffer do we have there? Is it just for the pond? How close is the pond going to be to the railroad tracks? I guess there again, we have a lot of these great big diesel carriers going through anymore. And I could, if something happened, are we going to have some kind of contamination? And then who will be responsible for cleaning all of that up? So I'm kind of on the same mindset as Councillor Tadman here, as far as I don't see exactly where the railroad track is going to be. I don't know how far we are away from the railroad track, considering this pond.
So the railroad tracks are not on the map.
On the
that you
map,
see.
right?
They're-
So
they're-
how much farther back are we?
The railroad tracks essentially follow the line that is off the map,
The line that is off the map.
right? So if you see the southerlymost line that runs up moderately, the railroad tracks run along that diagonal.
On that line, okay.
And the
So we're-
railroad owns the little piece that's in the hash marks below.
Correct.
That would be a portion of the stormwater management area of the development. The stormwater management area would be, if I'm remembering the map that we saw last, would be roughly the same distance as the blank area you see to the east.
Yeah, I don't think maybe I explained myself correctly, but that's kind of what I'm wondering too. So this is not going to be we're not going to be able to push houses farther south.
That is not the intent, no. The intent is just to have CN sell the land to the developer so that they have access to the lands for their stormwater management.
To create a
Facility.
stormwater pond.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
whatever we're
that's
going to call
correct.
it, facility. Okay. Okay. And that will then be still kind of buffered and mounted all the way around. There again, safety concerns, correct?
Director?
Through the mayor to council, yes, so that is exactly it. I can just confirm what's been discussed, that hashed area down by the dark black outline is the area proposed to be a stormwater management pond in the subdivision that was presented in the public open house. And the lands immediately south of that outlined hashed polygon is the CNR right of way. The storm pond is proposed to abut the CNR right of way. And CN has very specific noise, vibration, and crash standards that is needing to be responded to through the course of designing the subdivision. So the storm pond, not only is it a good location for it because it's a low point and this sort of thing, but also it makes for a good buffer in the event of a crash. So there's a double benefit of having that location there used as a storm pond. And furthermore, there is also a proposed berm in combination with a fence for dealing with noise and vibration as well toward the residential components of the subdivision. But long and short is this lot addition is one, I understand, is to correct some historical title discrepancies. I guess there was a thought that this parcel was always meant to be part of the parcel north of it through some legal title search, but also the land lot addition simply consolidated the lands and allowed for that pond and that buffer and the noise vibration facility be situate all within the adjacent lands to the CNR.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just one more question. When you say that this is or was maybe a CN right of way, is there access for CN in some other area in case there is some kind of an accident? Like I know there is farther west of town, but I don't know, do we have anything directly right within that area, or would that include Rundle Lane as far as access in case of emergency?
Director Walsh.
That's a good question. We can review that at the time of consideration of the draft approval for the subdivision. I think your point is probably well taken that Rundle Lane might need to be a chief point of access. Don't recall that being in the background reports. The planner Jennifer Wood, representing FOTEN and this applicant, may have that answer offhand, but we will look for that issue to be reviewed at the time of further analyzing the subdivision.
Ms. Wood.
Thank you. And through you, just to build on staff's comments, CN has been circulated on the concurrent OPA ZBA draft plan of subdivision to date and hasn't provided any commentary on access thus far. And I also just want to, I guess, clarify that the consent before you this evening is to kind of rectify a previous land registry error. Those lands were always intended to form part, or at a point long ago, part of this property. And it was through actual due diligence on CN's part for other related work that they realized that the PIN for this parcel was showing up under their name, and they thought it had been transferred years ago. So they actually approached our client to rectify the situation and formalize that land conveyance. And you can see in the severance graphic that's part of the agenda this evening with the surrounding parcel fabric that the lands to the west and the east, their southern limit of their property boundary is consistent with the proposed new southern limit of the subject lands to receive the lot addition. So when you look at the parcel fabric, there's a funny jut north of the CN rail right of way, which is was an error at one point. So it's really just a land consolidation to reflect what should have been the correct parcel fabric. As of tonight, if should this be approved, the agricultural zoning is still in effect and in place. It's really through that subdivision and rezoning process that we look at buffering and safety measures through the technical studies. That is, and really it's this land consolidation exercise needs to happen before the other planning applications can be considered.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Rowley?
Just a comment maybe, just to our planning staff. And no, I'm not a planner or an expert, but as this comes forward, if you could take those considerations regarding safety access to when we deal with this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
Two questions, if I could. In line with what Councillor Rowley was talking about, on page 6 of the report, it said under department comments, all municipal departments have expressed no concerns with the application. Does our fire chief or deputy chief review these and they provided no comment, or they didn't review it? Because emergency services, they'd be first on the scene.
Mrs. Deck.
As part of our development review team, which we will be discussing later in the agenda, the fire chief is included in the development review team. So he does comment on these applications, and there were no objections to the consent application. Although we are currently reviewing, like Jennifer said, the ZBA, OPA, and plan of subdivision, and certainly comments have been consolidated from the fire chief as well for that.
Thank you. Follow up.
The second question, because we're talking that the use of this would be potentially for the stormwater facility. I can't envision how big this parcel is. Is this land big enough for the current growth and the future growth for that area? And is there adequate access for our own municipal staff? Because once we assume this subdivision, whenever it's completed, that stormwater pond will become our responsibility, and we'll have to have access to it to maintain it.
Mrs. Deck.
There will be sufficient access to the stormwater block for maintenance, any sort of cleanouts that we'll have to do, certainly.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Chair. So this I'm going to go back to Royal Gala. If you look at the homes here, you see where the pond is presently now from the railroad. There's sufficient distance. With this one here, if they put it here, they're going to be right beside the railroad track. There's going to be no place in case there's a derailment. There's no access to it. You block it off. How do we? And you're going to put a wall on it. How do you maintain it? Erosion. If it lets go, distance to the railroad track, the developer doesn't become liable. We become liable as a town. So why would we want to accept it when we have safe distance for all the other stormwater management ponds for there? And if we have to get access for fire, that's one side of the railroad track because you can't come from the other side. And we've already had 2 derailments in this area. We've had 5 around Brighton since I've been here since 1993. So when we look at these things, I have an issue about giving up these lands when you have access to go along the railroad track and do something, and also with maintenance and to keep the pond away. We also have problems in the subdivision with ponds. So, and also Rundle Lane where it bends and when it comes down, that is a drainage and that's an easement for water in the creek. So you can't extend that road because they don't have the permit for the first creek they want to put down in phase 4. Because I checked with the Lower Trent. So how would you extend Rundle Lane to come here to with access to go to a train? Well, it's a creek that they filled in and they diverted, which they have to put back in place. And that was picked out through the walkabout. So I'm not in favor of this, and I'm going to call for a recorded vote.
Any comment on that? And specifically, I'd like you to comment on the intent of where the stormwater facility will be, and that it really isn't just this sliver of land we're talking about. It will be on a larger fabric of land that will include this sliver, I think, anyway.
Yes, Mayor, that block is a little bit smaller than the proposed block for the stormwater management plan as last presented in the submitted documentation for the proposed subdivision there. Long story short, that pond has to be the size it needs to be to service the area. It will work together with the pond for phases 1 and 2. There's a bit of a watershed divide that separates the two. We did consider having one larger pond, but functionally, design-wise, that doesn't work. So that block is needed for the storm pond. CN does recognize water bodies, including storm ponds, as a buffer for instances of derailments and crashes, as a means of mitigating the movement of the locomotives and cars. It slows them down before they can get too much further, and plus the setbacks. So that land is going to offer that buffer that's needed. In terms of the drainage at the termination of Rundle Lane at the CNR, there is a outlet for the storm pond from that serves phase 1 and 2 that comes out towards the end of that road allowance. And it will cross that road allowance in the vicinity of their other storm pond when and if it's constructed. And there will be a confluence of collection of stormwater there. So that doesn't mean that we can't maintain access to the CNR right of way. I recall my walkabout. It's some physical improvements are needed, yes, but it's there, and it was traversable.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
I think looking at the full plan, it'd probably be much more accessible if there was a problem on the rail in the future compared to what it is today. I also think that entire subdivision will be serviced with water and fire hydrants, and so accessibility of, if they use water on oil, but it depends on the type of crash it would be, if ever. We probably have to look at the setbacks for all our community then, if we're going to be talking about this. So there's a lot of homes that are right along there and businesses that are within feet of the railway. So what are we doing about those concerns? I don't see, I think, and Paul, I think you're addressing this the best you can because it's not done yet, but I think it can be addressed where those for that stretch there, that it's watched, it's on the radar to what's going to be done, but I think it can only be better. I can't see, and like you said, there's a pond there that's a buffer right now. I don't know what's there exactly right now. I haven't walked that part of the property, but I'm sure it's going to be better than it is today.
And further, Mayor, I guess I was concerned that may not be enough space, but one of the very explicit comments, technical comments that have been shared with the proponent is that show us that there's room for the pond and the berm and the noise fence. So that is a requirement.
Thank you both. And just a reminder that we're not dealing with the overall plan of subdivision this evening. We're just dealing with this consent, which is, from what we've heard, a technical fix through the whole land registry process. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And I just want to, I can add to that a little bit, that we were told we're not giving away our land. This is CN's land, and they've requested this in order to fix, a technical error. And if you look on both sides, you can see that the property line is similar on both sides. So it's not like on the other two sides that the land doesn't go to the tracks. On the other two sides, the land does go to the tracks. And just that little line there, that's not where the pond's going to be. Obviously, it's going to fill in a bigger area there. So, and you're right, we're not discussing the pond. We're discussing whether or not we're in favor of fixing this technical issues, which I think we really need to fix, because I think there's been an assumption that this is the way it is. And they've just found this out, as of late. So I'd be in favor of it.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, I understand what the deputy mayor is saying, but their planner and our planner suggested that there was going to be a pond here. So this is why the pond issue came up. The also, being a remediation contractor, unfortunately, I can't be a standard counselor. And basically, if they want to put the pond here close to the track, and going with Councillor Emily Rowley, basically this will be a direct conduit for fuel oil, gasoline, or fuel spill that'll go directly into the pond, directly to Butler Creek, and directly to Lake Ontario. So you're going to have a significant impact to the environment and sustainability to the entire creek and long-term damage. So that's the problem with bringing a pond and putting a pond that close to it. The one behind Raglan is sufficient distance that the train would bounce off, but here they want to put it too close. So that's my concern. And the thing is, if any of you have done a remediation fuel spill from a pond in a creek and into Lake Ontario, I'd gladly listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I want to reiterate again that we're not actually discussing the pond. We're discussing whether or not the lot addition should happen. Thank you.
Throw the book at her. Try that.
Mayor, if I may assist.
Please do.
Thank you for that point, Councillor. Staff will take a look at that issue in the event that there's a draft approval report going forward. Right now with this lot addition, the zoning will stay the same. There's no change of use with zoning amendment. So it doesn't trigger a full ESA through this lot addition. An ESA report, as you're, I think, alluding to, would be triggered in the event of the zoning bylaw amendment. So we're very aware of that issue, and we are keeping an eye on that, and we'll be asking for a full ESA on these lands as well.
Thank you, Director Walsh. Councillor LeBlanc.
So through you, Chair, for Director. So until that ESA is done, and we look at a spill, and we would be liable because it's our pond, our water, our creek, and we would have to pay that through our insurance policy. So we're looking at millions of dollars. So before, would you like to have this deferred until that ESA study is done and where the pond is going to be situated on this property or close to this? So we can make a sound decision.
Well, I think that decision would be pertinent with or without the lot addition. This, as Deputy Mayor pointed out, is kind of a funny piece of land. It sticks up from the CNR right away in this kind of isolated area. The chance that there's going to be a derailment specifically at this area as opposed to any other is very improbable. I think this being literally just a technical consent with a lot addition, we have better control over those issues through review of a draft plan subdivision at a later date.
Thank you, Director. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
Just for clarity, it'll come before this council or a future council on whatever that land is going to be used for at that time, and the proximity of where it's going to be, close to the rails, not close to the rails. That'll be whenever they decide to come with a site plan for that area.
Director.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So in a nutshell, there's nothing proposed to be built in and around what we're doing tonight. That'll have to come at a future meeting that they'll say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then whoever's sitting around this table can then decide whether they're going to approve something and what distance from that, correct?
That's correct. There'll be a long list of draft approval conditions recommended as well that may address additional issues at the time of actual construction.
Thank you both. Councillor Rowley.
My comments were pretty well the same. Thanks. I just wanted to be clear. We're not changing anything. We're not changing any ideas or any zonings or anything. We're just adding this piece of land, and it will not, there's no effect to, once it's done, that they can start doing anything with it. We still have a long way to go, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Tadman.
But as I said at the beginning, very convenient that CN wants to clear their title, and it's extremely convenient that the developer will probably get this property very cheap. And in the end, it accommodates the developer to build more homes because he's got more land to build in that area. My biggest concern of all is, and Councillor Anderson, you said, there's other places that are near the tracks, but the more we learn about, and we've had the derailments not very far from where that storm water was, and I'm very concerned about that. What goes into that storm water from some of those tanks that are pretty dangerous tanks that are going through our town could totally pollute the whole waterways from there all the way down. So that's my feelings about this.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Mrs. Deck, do you have any final comments?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision this evening? I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council receives the staff report regarding consent B19-2021 as prepared by the Planning and Development Department, and further that council grant provisional consent to application B19-2021 subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 2 years from the date of the mailing of the decision. Confirmation from the applicant's solicitor that the severed and benefiting lands will merge on title. That the solicitor for the applicant shall submit an undertaking to the municipality to the following effect, quote, I hereby personally undertake to prepare and register an application to consolidate parcels of those lands being the severed lands herein and those lands being the benefiting lands herein, and provide to the municipality the registered application to consolidate parcels as soon as possible after the registration of the severance, transfer, and designation of the new PIN to the severed lands. That subsections 3 and 5 of Section 50 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, shall apply to any subsequent conveyance of or transaction involving the conveyed lands. That all taxes on each of the lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. That a digital copy of a registrable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. That geospatial data of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained lands shall be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. That the owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed conveying the severed lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. Is there any discussion from members of council? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. As I like to follow along what you usually read, the recommendation, I don't have everything on my paper that you have there. Did I miss something? I don't have, like I have A, B, C, D, E, a couple of them, but some of the stuff that you started with is not printed on my paper.
I have conditions A through H.
But you read more than that because I couldn't follow along. I was missing.
No,
stuff.
no, I did not. I read conditions A through H.
Yeah, I only have A to E. I don't have. And I don't have it.
Sure. You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Blanc, you asked for a recorded vote. Is that correct? Thank you, Deputy Clerk. A recorded vote has been requested by Councillor LeBlanc.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
No.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
No.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Connect,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. That brings us to our short-term accommodation rentals, housekeeping revision to the zoning bylaw. And Mr. Walsh, by what method and on what date was notice of the consent and zoning? But it's not a consent. So by what method and on what date was notice of the applications given, sir?
Mayor to Council, notice of the zoning bylaw amendment was given in accordance with the Planning Act regulations through 2 consecutive advertisements in the newspaper dated May 26th and the June 22nd issues of the Brighton Independent. Also, track changes version of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment was posted on the municipal website page and the public meetings for planning items.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
The proposed housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment is to confirm the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment number 97-2021 that originally introduced zoning provisions pertaining to short-term accommodations. The zoning bylaw amendment is to address wording revisions to section 4.44.2, which would clarify the provisions pertaining to density limits as being applicable to whole home short-term accommodations, not to other forms of short-term accommodations, such as bed and breakfasts and those that make use of their homes for short-term accommodations. As council will recall, the density limits are a maximum of 15% of all homes in the area may be whole home short-term accommodations. This maximum density limit does not apply to bed and breakfast. The zone amendment would add clarity to the standing intent and effect of the originally passed zoning bylaw amendment number 097-2021. No comments have been received in responses to the notices or postings that were given.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Please approach the microphone. Yes, please.
Or confusing. I feel that different requirements and the whole home, and I feel we're put into one category, and to me it's not particularly maintaining control.
You're referencing the registration of your short-term accommodation rental with the municipality?
Right.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is ask you to maybe have a conversation with Director Walsh on the side, and if Director, if you have a business card that you could give to Ms. Bate, that'd be great. But because what you're talking about now doesn't apply to the information we're looking at this evening.
Okay.
Okay, we're just looking at some housekeeping items to amend the bylaw.
Okay.
But I think you have some particular concerns about about how we're registering. So I'd ask you to have that conversation with Mr. Walsh.
Okay.
Okay.
And I suppose part of it is I don't completely know what the bylaws are that you're looking to amend. I don't know what was initially put together and what is changing.
Okay, so
I'm looking for clarification.
okay, so what we're amending this evening is the zoning bylaw, the comprehensive zoning bylaw specific to short-term accommodations and the language around whole home accommodations and what's permitted in how many of those are permitted in certain neighborhoods.
Okay.
Okay.
So is that information available to the public, or is it something still in discussion?
It is available to the public, Mr. Walsh.
Sure, through the mayor, that information is available on our website.
Okay.
And if you'd like to schedule a meeting with me, I can walk through that information with you. And as the mayor indicated, tonight we're just dealing with a word changed in the zoning bylaw. And the zoning bylaw had some miswording in it that we're just cleaning up. I think what you're referring to is the licensing bylaw, and we're not dealing with the licensing bylaw tonight.
Okay.
And both the zoning bylaw and the licensing bylaw do distinguish and treat differently short-term accommodations of a whole home where there's no owner resident on the property versus those that are a short-term accommodation where the owner is also present on the property. So there is that distinction in the bylaws and the provisions.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can happy to explain all that to you, walking through things if you want to make an appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did you have a similar concern?
Yeah.
Okay, so perhaps Mr. Walsh, if you have two business cards, that would be good to hand those out when we're done here. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? There are none noted. Director, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision this evening? I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by. I'll need a seconder. It's seconded by Councillor Tadman. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Connect, that council receives the staff report dated June 13th, 2022 regarding housekeeping revision to the zoning bylaw pertaining to short-term accommodations, and further the council give passing to the amendment to zoning bylaw amendment number number 097-2021 as prepared for this report. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Councillor Anderson, would you retrieve Councillor Tadman, please? Councillor LeBlanc vacated the chambers at 7:41 p.m. So that ends our items in the statutory public meeting, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by, I'll need a seconder for that, Councillor Bateman, thank you. The council move out of the statutory public meeting June 13th, 2022 at 7:41 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Brings us to planning and development reports. Our first report is with regard to a proposed policy development review team. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Just a little bit, Mayor. Council may benefit from a little bit of a background there, or repeat background perhaps. It's common for municipalities to establish a technical committee for a review of different applications that come forward under the Planning Act, and it just helps that everyone has a coordinated response to technical comments made to applicants, and it's provides for one-stop shopping for applicants, so it represents good service, but also allows those technical agents to coordinate their comments a little bit so that there's nothing contradictory or otherwise vague or not pertinent to the application in the intended fashion. So our neighboring municipalities make use of this. We'll see one in Port Hope, in Cobourg, Quinte West. So the staff have been meeting as a development review team. We call it DevRev for about 2 years now. It's one of the first things I did when I got here. And it's been working pretty effectively. I think Samantha, Planner One, is very important in coordinating that and doing the agendas and getting people together and preparing the application information for us to review and consolidate comments and get that off to the applicants. And it seems to be working pretty efficiently, if I may say so. And there's always room for improvement, of course. But so we meet on a bi-weekly basis, more or less, and our agendas are pretty full each time. Occasionally, we cancel when we don't feel we have enough there to keep everybody busy. So this policy simply seeks to acknowledge or formalize DevRev. So the policy framework is designed to give some guidance as to how it might operate. And that guidance also allows for council to then delegate any approvals that deems appropriate to delegate to that group, as opposed to an individual staff member, as sometimes happens in some municipalities. As you see later in the agendas, we need to consider for site plan and control approvals as ordered or mandated by the province under Bill 109. So this is just simply a procedural policy, recognizing that we've been doing this and giving some guidance to the committee so they can continue to operate as a self-directed work team with different disciplines interacting and working and performing.
Thank you, Director. And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Tadman, that council receives the staff report dated June 6, 2022 regarding the Municipality of Brighton's currently operating Technical Development Review Group, and that the Municipal Policy Manual be amended to include an operating policy for the Development Review Team to be inserted as Planning Policy PL121, policies being attachment number 1 to this report. Is there any discussion from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
For the director, it mentions common practice amongst the other municipalities. And I'm not sure if it's their technical review team, but I know they have planning committees in all the municipalities you mentioned. And Northumberland County that's not mentioned have council reps that sit on those committees. Is that something that was considered? And the second part of that is with our accessibility committee, has any consideration been given to adding a spot for one of the members, like the chair, that somebody that has the AODA qualifications that they can lend their expertise, not tell you what to do, but as a value add to have at the table.
Director?
Sure. I mean, I think there is a very valuable role for planning advisory committees. Bill 73 of the 2 governments ago introduced the Bill 73, making it required for municipalities to have planning advisory committees that were upper tier and single tier. So there wasn't a requirement for lower tier municipality, such as municipality of Brighton, to do that. But that Bill 73 also gave exemptions to municipalities that used other advisory committees. So in our case, we have heritage advisory, we have accessibility advisory, we have rural advisory, and we have sustainability advisory. So I think in aggregate, we have almost what is in effect a planning advisory committee. And going forward, I think council will notice that staff recommendations, when we introduce an application to council through an information report, one of the matters that will be referenced is to circulate that application or set of applications to our advisory committees going forward. So they will be in course getting them. What we're talking about tonight with the development review team or DevRev is simply technical. It's just staff, and we're administering existing official plan policies, zoning bylaw, existing standards in Ontario provincial standards. We're trying to articulate what represents good planning from our own perspective, interpretation or precedent set through our official plan policies and previous decisions of council, et cetera. So this is really just a vehicle or a venue for getting information out to the applicant in a good coordinated way. It's not really meant to be part of a governance framework per se. It's just the directives council's already given us. We are now taking that ball that's been thrown to us and doing our best with it in the most efficient way possible.
Thank you, Director. Councillor LeBlanc?
Mayor, when I read the director, when I read your agreement, you said you wanted this committee so you could meet the 60-day policy, so there was no refunds. But you've also said that you've always been, that this is already going in place and everything, and the regulation, the government regulation 109 has just come into place. You mentioned Port Hope, Coburg, and Quinte West. When I went and looked at those bodies, they've had councillors working with these committees like this through the entire term since we've been elected. They've had it in the previous term. This council hasn't. The next thing you want us to do, and you make it reference that you want no councillors, the next phase, you want no councillors on the committee, and you want delegated authority to do certain things and stuff without having to come to council.
We're not discussing that yet.
Okay, well, when we get there, it's all part of this. If this is approved, the next one goes. The thing is, you've already been doing this. And if we haven't been meeting the 60 days with all the group, how are you going to meet the 60 days by having the group together? It's not going to change. So the thing is, I think you should just stay the same way. Or if you're going to use the other ones as a reference, there should be councils on a councillor or two on the committee with you, so we know what's going on.
So I think we're confusing the development review team with the planning committee. I know that some of the municipalities around us have planning committees on which members of council sit. Their members of council sit, but they would not sit on their development review team, which would be for technical reviews by staff. So all those reviews would come to the planning committee, which is us, quite frankly, here in the municipality of Brighton. We are the planning committee. And it's been designed that way because of members of council's interest in the planning process here in Brighton. And we don't want any one or two members of council not being involved in the planning decisions. So that's why we bring it to all of council. That's what so we are the planning committee here when we meet the second Monday of the month. Councillor Tadman.
You must have saw me scratch my head. I didn't have my hand up.
Councillor Anderson.
I scratched my head and had my hand up.
There you
But
go.
anyhow, I think we're empowering our staff to do this function. And then by adding counselors to it, I think there's a potential for conflict of interest down the road too. So I think it's something that our staff would keep it simple. And if we keep adding more people to their committee, those 60 days will go rather fast, I think. But I think it's best to leave you the way you've done it. It seems to work, or if you're obviously happy with it. That's why you're bringing this forward to get it done. And that's how I feel about it. So I'd like to keep the council out of it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. As has been explained to us, this is a technical review committee. I don't think as members of council, we're expected to know or be experts in any of the technical issues. And I'm content to have staff continue to take care of this.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
I did not say that staff should be on this committee. I said the example he used, they have staff on they have council with them. Before, we're part of it. We have nobody there. The only time I find out what's going on in this municipality when I get the mayor's update on Friday. Otherwise than that, I'm a mushroom fed in the dark. So they're just one of the things.
It's a good thing you get my update then. And again, the example that Mr. Walsh used was the development review teams of the other communities who do not have members of council sitting on their development review teams. They have members of council sitting on their planning committee. So these are different animals that we're talking about. Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Brings us to the amended site plan control bylaw and delegation to the development review team. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Mayor Council, this is really in direct response to the mandate and the order the province has issued through its amendment to the Planning Act through Bill 109, saying that by July 1st, all site plan control approvals will be delegated to staff. It's pretty simple, black and white directive, and we're trying to meet that deadline. And further, we need to meet the deadline of January when we do have those refund expectations if we don't meet certain timelines. So important in leading up to January 1 is to have a site plan control manual. So we have very, detailed how-to type level details in doing a site plan application. You're welcome to use your browser and look at other municipalities that have these comprehensive manuals in place already, but that's something we're going to need to strive to, because if we don't have that information in place, then there's going to be expectation, presumably, from an applicant to either be given that very quick opportunity to appeal or to ask for those refunds.
Thank you, Director. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council receives a staff report dated June 13th, 2022, regarding the delegation of site plan control to the development review team, and the council enacts an amendment to site plan control bylaw 006-2012 for the purposes of delegating approval of site plan control drawings and related agreements as prepared in this report. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Just for clarity on this one, so I can completely understand it. So all stuff is going to still come before council for approval for the overall site plans, correct? Because I read in here, I don't know what page, number 2, I think, page 2. Introduce the option of site plan undertakings for development of sufficiently small in scale. Does that mean the small in scale won't come here? That it's a decision the planning department will make, and only thing deemed large and up would come? Just clarification if you could.
Director?
Sure. To clarify, the legislation says all site plan control approvals are to be delegated to staff because they're very much a building permit stage type approval. And of course, building permits themselves aren't subject to council approval. And the other reason why I think the province is pushing site plan control approval towards staff is, one, it is by and large the prevailing practice among most municipalities. be honest with you. And secondly, council's already dealt with it through their zoning bylaw. So what can be permitted on the site? Well, that's dictated by the zoning bylaw. Council's already passed the zoning bylaw and all its standards and all its permitted uses. So when we're really talking about site plan control, we're really talking about what buildings we can put up and lay out the parking a little more efficiently and make sure the waste containerization is there and some of these level of details. So the effect of this would be all site plan control approvals would be at the staff level. That's what the legislation says. That's what we have to respond to. The reference to site plan undertakings is simply a distinction that's not being approved tonight. If you approve this, it would be approved through an updated site plan control bylaw. And that updated bylaw would come forward at a time when we can also introduce site plan control manual. But the benefit of undertaking is that it's those smaller scale developments that don't need an agreement. They just need some prerequisite notes on the site plan drawings and the signature of the owner and the approval authority. So yeah, to answer your question, it's really all site plan control approvals would be going to staff.
But that doesn't include things like subdivisions or things like that. This
That's
is
correct.
Specific site plans.
Yeah, this is just site level details. Where's the driveway?
Yeah.
Where's the parking lot? Where is the waste container going? Where's the light standard going? So it's site level details, and these details are for one site,
Right.
not like a plan of subdivision where you're looking at a whole layout and a whole new design, et cetera,
Which would still come to council.
which still comes to council.
Thank you for that, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. And as you say, this is legislated by the province. The idea behind this is to try to speed up the process, is it not?
That's the reasons that we were given, yes. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman, did you have another question?
No, I just want to thank, I just needed clarity around that so that major subdivisions are still going to come. It's just when you read it, you can take it any different direction, but the clarity is appreciated.
Thank you for that. Anything further? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Doesn't the act say if the municipality wants to, they can't, they don't necessarily have to have this? Because when you delegate authority, the thing is, if we delegate authority, we're not delegating accountability to you. Unfortunately, something happens, the councilors end up by wearing it every time. Because we've delegated authority for certain things and we're wearing it now.
Director Walsh?
You understand, Councillor, through the mayor to Councillor LeBlanc, understand that. And I am aware of one municipality where it had been delegated to staff, and then there was a highbrow, very public facing development that people were scratching their heads. Why wasn't there public consultation or notice of this? And then the council changed their mind about delegating site plan approvals. Then other places, they only delegate large scale site plan approvals, et cetera. Well, that's all behind us now, the Bill 109. It's not, there's no option. And they made it mandatory. By July 1st, it shall be delegated to staff. Now, my workaround on this, because I like open accountability and transparency, and you'll see referenced in the report elsewhere, is that for those approvals of site plan control that staff have given, that will be put on the agenda as an information report. This is what staff have been dealing with. So you will not be a mushroom.
We're grateful for that. Thank you very much. Councillor LeBlanc?
To that chair. The thing is, all right, I understand where we're going and I've read what's happened at other councils and I've looked at it and the problems that they have with it. This is brand new, it's coming in. One of the comments you made, if you could come with the manual that I could read before I vote for this, then I would have no problem voting for it. But voting something without seeing the manual, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that.
With respect, we had the report. If you wanted to Google Bill 109, I'm sure it's available on the provincial website.
No, it's the manual that he's going to have they're going to work by.
Oh, you
The
mean for
committee.
site plan control manual?
I have worked quite hard on an updated site plan control bylaw, but we're not there yet. It won't be ready for July 1st. And a typical site plan control manual is like 100 pages. And it takes the whole development review team input on it because there's a lot of engineering in there too.
And
So-
you're aiming for a January 1st.
January
date for
1st is the mandatory timeline to have, where applicants can ask refunds and shorten the appeal period actually got extended a little bit. But it's still aggressive appeal timeframes that, and my colleagues are scratching their heads wondering like, how are we going to meet these timelines? So.
So what we're dealing with tonight, we're legislated to deal with on or before July 1st. And what Councillor LeBlanc is talking about, you are working on a timeline toward the January 1st deadline based on those refund policies that the province has put in place.
Exactly.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
And I'm under the assumption that everything that's in the Planning Act on driveway setbacks and everything else, regardless of this, you still have to, or the developers still have to follow everything that's. Okay.
That's correct. I mean, they still need to get their entrance permit. There's something that's not reviewed by council. They still need to get their sanitary connection and water connection. Again, things that aren't reviewed by council. These are all very site level details. So in site plan control really just brings all that together at the time of the building permit.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
Just a quick follow-up for whoever can answer, because we've heard it's July 1st. That's a hard deadline by the province. What's the repercussions if you're not ready by July 1st? Or do we know?
Director.
Well, I guess we risk that decisions of approval may be invalidated if there was ever any court of review of it. If we don't comply with legislation, then there's always that risk. But I'm not a lawyer, but so it's a good question, but it does raise that question.
At the end of the day, the municipalities across Ontario are children of the province, and we do what we're told sometimes. In a couple of years, maybe. We just voted them back in. So anything further from members of council? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion's carried. That brings us to project plan proposals, Sustainability Advisory Working Committee. Director Walsh, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Mayor, council, not too much to add there. The Sustainability Advisory Committee working hard at getting this project proposal together. And the idea is to go out to different interested parties and the public at large throughout the community and see what sustainability and related interests that people have, and then come back with a to-do list or project list for council's further consideration. Staff report cites different things out of the terms of reference for the operations of the Sustainability Advisory Committee as a basis for recommending that this go forward as presented.
Thank you, Director. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council receives a staff report dated June 6, 2022, regarding the project plan proposal of the Municipality of Brighton Sustainability Advisory Working Committee, and that council support the Sustainability Advisory Working Committee's project plan proposal as shown as attachment number 2 to this report that involves public engagement for the purposes of developing a proposed sustainability framework, and that prior to council receiving through a staff report a proposed sustainability framework for its consideration, a draft sustainability framework be circulated by the clerk to all departments and municipal advisory committees for consultation and comment. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to say, I appreciate having this outline like this, because I did have concerns early on that I expressed to both you and the director. So I think this helps.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. It says here a maximum of 2 members of council. Do we have 2 on this?
I believe it's Councillors Bateman and LeBlanc. Is that correct, gentlemen? Yes. Anything further, Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, and what has helped out, Mayor, on this committee was the clerk's department and working with Mr. Walsh on getting with the committee of actually getting minutes for all the meetings and bringing it into a circular committee of council. Before it was a bit all over the place, but with the clerk's department and Mr. Walsh, we brought it into a good committee. And there's a lot of talented people on this committee.
Thank you for that. Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. There is no unfinished business listed on tonight's agenda, which brings us to bylaws. Our first bylaws with regard to the Boundary Road Maintenance Agreement with Quinte West. Motion is moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw. It's for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to enter an agreement for the boundary road maintenance between the municipality of Brighton and the city of Quinte West. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next bylaw is the short-term accommodation dwelling or dwelling units bylaw amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 140-2002 as amended with respect to the short-term accommodation dwellings or dwelling units in the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Next is with regard to Gary Ware vacant lot 116 Bayview Lane, 106 Bayview Lane, 104 Bayview Lane, and 102 Bayview Lane. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 140-2002 as otherwise amended, of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton as it applies to the lands located on vacant lot 116 Bayview Lane, 106 Bayview Lane, 104 Bayview Lane, and 102 Bayview Lane, described as part of Lot 36 Concession C, being Part 25 on Registered Plan 38R2561 and part of Lot 36 Concession C, being Parts 1 to 4 on Registered Plan 39R8780, subject to right-of-way over Parts 1 and 3, and part of Lot 36 Concession C, being Parts 1 to 6 and Parts 8 to 13, including school lease in effect on Registered Plan 39R6405 and part of Lot 36 Concession C, and part of Lot 36 Concession C being Part 1 on Registered Plan 39R10642. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And I would tell you to read it in your agenda. 8.4 zoning amendment 207 Ontario Street. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 140-2002 as otherwise amended of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton, as it applies to the lands located at 207 Ontario Street, described as part of Lot 2, Concession 1, being Part 2 on Registered Plan 38R4662. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And our final bylaw this evening is to delegate site plan approval to the Development Review Team. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw under the provisions of Section 41 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to amend bylaw number 006-2012 as otherwise amended of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton as it applies to site plan control applications so far as to provide for the delegation of duties to council to employees. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the audience, Wayne, who would like to ask a question on tonight's agenda? Deputy Clerk, are you aware of anyone joining us by electronic conference technology?
No, I am not.
Thank you. We have no in-camera session this evening. Brings us to our confirmatory bylaw, moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading, and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton planning meeting held on June 13th, 2022. Any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And finally, a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that the June 13th, 2022 planning meeting adjourn at 8:10 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you all. Drive safely home.